Greetings visitors, I'm Jonathan, also known as the PC Genie. Now, recently we've just had a trailer come up for a new game called Come Deliverance. Now let's have a look at the breakdown of the trailer and see what sorts of features are in there and what my thoughts are about the game that's coming up from there.
Peggy 16.
Okay, so it's looking good already. With Peggy 16 rating, that already tells us that it's not going to be an exceptional amount of sort of cursing. They're probably not going to have any overt sort of sex involved or anything like that. But at the same time, they haven't what you might call kidified it to show just sort of, you know, really tamed down and maybe only just sort of the world explodes and they go, oh damn, and that's it. They are having a gritty version of the medieval era, but at the same time, you're not going overboard and just using it as an excuse for taking artistic license off into, you know, galaxies beyond what they need to. So I feel that's a good sign already.
Put it all behind you.
Okay, so although it doesn't give you many, well, not many glimpses at all really into the sort of arms and armour, from what we've seen from the actual sort of development videos over the past year or so, it is going to be fairly realistic. So it's going to be layered with your sort of padding, mail armour, things like brigandine and plate armour, things like that. So it's going to be quite good. I don't know how they've balanced the arms and armour in terms of what can defeat what in what ways and in terms of the sort of location of strikes, because it sounds like they'll have it similar to H.E.M.A in terms of, let's say, like now, this is really well protected, but if you struck me on the head I'm dead sort of thing because I'm not wearing a helmet. Whether they'll have it like that or whether they will have to default back, you know, same as, you know, your Peter Molyneux style promises, they'll have to actually scrap that idea and just go for a whole sort of general armour system. This gives 20 points, this gives 15, and pile it all together and sort of mishmash from there, and this sword does X damage, just do that. So it will need to see, so I'd really recommend we all wait until the games come out and people who've already paid for the Kickstarter and whatnot actually get the game and review it. But it looks like it is going to be quite an advanced combat system, hopefully.
Henry! Get up now. There's work to be done. Wait, what's this? You've been at that sword play again, haven't you?
Someone has to bring order and reunite the Empire!
That's for Sigismund!
Woohoo!
What the fuck do you think you're doing?
We're just doing what we have to do!
Oh, sons! I'll make those smiles off your faces!
Voice animation could be better, but I mean, let's face it, I mean, we've dealt with worse before. It's not going to be as amazing as some games, clearly, but I mean, we've lived through things like the Elder Scrolls Oblivion where everyone seemed to do some weird kind of gestures every time they were talking, and it was all weird and all sorts of stuff was going on, and you know, we've had some really awful example in some other games, so I think this isn't exactly going to ruin the entire game. It's not really that much worth drama as long as the main actual playing of the game is good enough.
What got into you, Hal? You and your friends threw dung at Deutsch's freshly whitewashed house.
Deutsch was talking treason in the tavern about Sigismund and the king.
Look me in the eye, Henry. If you want to convince someone that they're wrong, try using your mouth and not your fists.
Your days drinking and chasing wenches. What kind of fool are you, boy?
You have courage, but you need training.
Now this is referring to a particular scene, well, a particular sort of quest you could call it, early on in the game that was actually shown during their sort of development and gameplay videos, which was where you find these people, this person who's talking treason in a pub, that's the equivalent of a bar, inn, tavern, restaurant, whatever you want to call it, not restaurant, but where this person's talking treason and you have the option to join with some rough and tumble friends and throw poop at their walls to sort of, you know, teach them a lesson, and then brawling ensues and all the rest. Now, it's actually showing there's a difference between a sort of a diplomatic and a sort of more fighty sort of answer. So, again, this would probably remind a lot of people of stuff like the Elder Scrolls series and games like that where you have multi-choice, or even games like Jade Empire where you had the open palm and closed fist options, which were really sort of good and evil types of choices where you just kind of you know, say stuff them and just act in a more brutish and violent way towards people and are more of a bully, or whether you're more of the sort of person who tries to be diplomatic, talk your way out of situations, make people make friends and be happy and all of that sort of stuff. Now, they've said a lot about this in their development videos, so that suggests there's going to be a heavy influence of that as well. And it suggests that skills, they actually said that skills would develop based on this. And that's important, so it's not just sort of like in some games where you have certain factors maybe that will increase your intimidation or, you know, obviously arms and armour to help buff your prowess in combat, but actually you'll have skills developed, so, you know, actively during these quests, not just from, you know, I need to fight this person, fight, you just gain some skill in fighting. Actually along the lines of, you do the quest, you took this route and you are more cunning, so you get better at perhaps sneaking around, or you're taking a more sort of diplomatic and legal route. You found a legal loophole and now you can catch them out. You've gained more diplomacy sorts of skills, and then here's the, I'm just going to rabble some peasants together and burn the place down, and haha, I've gained more leadership or something like that. So I don't know exactly what sorts of skills, how it breaks down. I think it is a bit similar. Again, I'll refer to the Elder Scrolls. They mention a sort of speech skill, so a bit similar to the original speechcraft skill, that idea of how well you're convincing, charming and intimidating people just through speech alone, compared with more direct approaches such as fighting.
Henry, help us!
Help us, son. Don't be a coward.
If Sigismund attacks, they can't hold.
We have to prepare for the worst.
Now, this suggests there's a general sort of overarching plot, and indeed that has been confirmed. It sounds like, although I don't know the exact history in the area, because it's more based in Eastern Europe and my knowledge is in more sort of Western Europe, the idea is there's a particular war happening between these factions, between, I can't even remember which particular areas in particular, but there's going to be a lot of involvement between the main protagonist and the war itself, and clearly the choices that they make will help to determine where their path goes, even if perhaps the actual results of the war are set in history, so you'll be partaking of battles and they'll win or lose regardless, but perhaps there'll be battles that you lose and you get the opportunity to run away, or perhaps try to chase down a particular, you know, set of people that you're getting vengeance on, those sorts of things. So although there'll be linear events that are set and absolutely will or won't happen, there will still be the option for the character's personal progression and the personal sort of grudges, rivalries, their developments and relationships. Those, of course, will still be able to change, even though the bigger picture is still set in stone.
You spend all...
Fire arrows? Really? Now, it's a small point, and maybe I'm picking a lot from a little. It's my job. But I don't want to see things like fire arrows being used. You know, these are the sorts of weird anachronisms where, I mean, if you look at a fire arrow, it's just, it doesn't penetrate as far into any armour or into the flesh. It cauterizes a wound. You know, you get things like that where it's not just, you know, those buttons weren't invented until 20 years after this thing is set. This is one of those basic, no. Fire arrows were rarely used, and you wouldn't use them in the middle of a battle. It's one of those big, obvious problems, and if we are seeing a lot of that, it could be a sign, maybe some sort of omen, that actually we could be seeing a lot more really iffy looking stuff in the game. Again, I don't know how it's going to impact the fun and the enjoyment of playing a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance. We'll see, but hopefully we don't see much more anachronism than that.
Arms, a horse.
Please, take me into your service and give me the chance to learn these things.
I sincerely hope that's not studded armour I saw there, and it was actually just some sort of brigandine, because it would be disappointing if they just went for one of the worst anachronisms you could get, just having little decorative little bits of metal stuck into something that could be perfectly suitable, like a toughened jerkin, or, well, not jerkin, but some kind of hardened boiled leather suit, or some kind of thick padded armour, or even brigandine, which maybe the rivets are covering underneath and it's just bulkier, more sort of decorative rivets that sort of are better for higher up people and are more expensive than just getting plain rivets and getting practical armour. Who knows, but it's going to be worth watching out for.
I never want to forget this. The time has come for those whoresons to pay for what they did to us.
Move! Move! Sir! They're coming! There's no time!
So in general, my conclusion is that the graphics are going to be looking very good. I'm liking the amount of texturing and detail. I like the vibrant colour as well. Sometimes you see the representations of medieval period as this sort of everyone's in grey, brown and black. It's just this almost sort of monochrome existence, and it makes everything look boring, whereas in this case you're seeing a lot more sort of reds, yellows, greens, blues, all those sorts of colours. You've got brighter, more defined, characteristic sort of tunics, gambesons and those sorts of things, which is good. That's going to help a lot. It's going to help make the game more interesting to look at, and it's also going to mean you can define characters more. There are certain actual sorts of things you can check in terms of the personalities based on certain colours, like someone who's more impetuous and bloodthirsty is more kind of reddish, someone who's more sort of wise, the sort of a king's advisor type will be probably in a sort of blue, someone who's very loyal, that kind of thing. You can start to play around with that, and I imagine I'm not the only person who thought that. I mean, they've spent years and spent their time focusing on actually developing this game properly, so I imagine they'll be playing some of that in, so you can actually look out and see the characters' personality types based on what they're wearing, their colours and the sorts of appearances there, and other subtler details. In terms of the combat, it's looking good. They've based a lot of it on historical European martial arts, and to those who don't know, that's basically looking at the original manuscripts from people like Fiore de la Berry in the medieval period and Renaissance, and actually looking at the techniques and trying to recreate them properly. And I've already done other videos covering those subjects, in fact, and it's good to see this in games as opposed to more sort of stage combat style, swinging over and too far away from people and missing really obviously tippity tappity, silly nonsense that's not going to do anything, or kind of pushing against each other's swords. I'm pushing against your sword and you're pushing against my sword, nothing's bloody happening, when actually you're going to have a lot more proper combat that's going to be dynamic and exciting as long as it's done right. Obviously we'll still need to wait and see whether they've ended up messing it up somehow or whether it's going to end up just like I hoped. Again, that's yet to be seen. It is still a game. It still needs to be progressed with button presses as opposed to using your arms and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to try and see pretty much a lot of innovation, in terms of trying to actually implement these sorts of real-life movements through things like motion capture, but you've got to fight people, uphill and downhill, behind sort of chairs and things, trying to make sure it all works and flows smoothly and feels exciting as well, without weird glitches and things getting in the way. So again, we'll need to wait to see more of that, because everything that we've seen so far in the development videos was actually, I've noticed, all in arenas. They were all level ground, all in the exact circumstances required, whereas of course, when it gets more realistic and you actually need to play it dynamically everywhere and anywhere with all kinds of opponents doing different things and the players acting in different ways, that's when you're going to start to see the cracks and how well this holds up. But yeah, in general, for once, I mean, normally when I look at all sorts of games with DLC and pre-orders and this and that and the other being advertised, I'm quite pessimistic. But in this case, I'm actually fairly optimistic. I think it's going to do well. Again, I always recommend to wait, see how the reviews go to find out for sure, rather than go on guesswork. But if it's time to make a guess now, I'd say it's probably going to be a pretty good game to play. So yeah, that's my thought, and see you later. Hopefully in more videos. Goodbye.